Moon Knight definitely needed more Moon Knights, and I'll tell you guys why in this review. What's up? It's Tech, and this is GVN. Let's do it. Yo, what's up? This is GVN, where we review movie series, comics, animations, and video games. It's Moon Knight. Now, I did the very first pilot review. You can check that out up here. This is going to put every other thing together. That's from episode 2 to episode 6. Yes, it's been a while since I've seen this, but I like finishing what I started, so we are finishing this one. Now, Moon Knight, being a standalone series, got the advantage of doing things differently from what the MCU does, because it's not burdened by that need for continuity. And with the way episode 1 ended, it looked like yes, we are in for a fun ride. And yeah, we did get a fun ride for quite some time, but not the entire time. And why am I saying this? Okay, so watching the entire series, I can say for a fact that Moon Knight definitely needed more Moon Knights. Yes, we got to see characters and exposition and this talk and that talk, but then it is an action series. It is based on a comic book character that has mystical powers from the god Khonshu, and we did not get to see that much of it. I don't know whether it was just me, but I needed more. I wanted more. There were some things about it that I really did like. Finding out about the different characters and the fact that there is a third personality called Jake Lockley. I mean, if you know the character from the comics, you will know, but if not, you won't. And the fact that Khonshu, when he made a deal, he actually made the deal with, well, if he makes a deal with you, he makes a deal with all your personalities. And since there are 3 of them, all 3 personalities. So there is Moon Knight, there is Mr. Knight, and then there's the Jake Lockley character. Now, from the very first episode, we will notice that there were times, and I remember mentioning it in my review, where I said those areas where he would black out, right? And then he will wake up and maybe he's a bit injured, but he realizes that there is carnage and chaos all around him. I would have loved to see what happened during that time, because I mean that was plenty action for you to see blood and this explosion here and there, right? And that is something that they did not deliver on for me, and I feel like it was sort of like a missed opportunity. And here's what I'm saying with that. So now we find out that there is Steven, there is Mark, there is Jake. And in finding out more about the character and proceeding with the series, then we realize that the main character, the owner of the body, is not Steven, the mild-mannered librarian, is actually Mark. Mark is the mercenary and is the one who had the childhood trauma, and he decided to create another personality who is free from all of this, and that personality is Steven, whom we saw at the very beginning, who we thought was actually the original. And finding out all of these things was quite crazy, because this is where he was shot and he died, and then he went and he opened the first tomb and he saw that, oh, here you are, this is my other personality. And you see there was a room with a third character, right? And it was like they were deliberately stretching out some things in this series, because there was a room with a third character and there was a door, and why didn't you guys open that one? Instead you just found some sort of activity and then you moved on. And then the whole thing was about getting balance, right? To decide whether that was when he was killed, to decide whether he gets thrown into the sand dunes or he goes into paradise, right? So 2 hearts needed to be weighed. Now that we know that there's a third character, Jake Lockley, so what happened to the third heart that needed to be weighed? Because that means at the end of the day there were meant to be 3 hearts, not 2. So is it because it was sealed in a tomb, it was conveniently put out of the story? That felt weird to me. And I'm not saying all of these things to bash the series. I think it was decent. I think it was a good watch overall. But there were some parts of this series that just didn't need to happen, in my opinion. For example, so we see that they are trying to find out what the plan is. They are trying to stop the goddess from being reincarnated by Harrow. And then it's very funny about this series that if any bad guy wants you to know who they are, right, all they'll just do is show you their arm, and then you see the tattoo of the the balancing scale, and you'll be like, oh, this is a bad guy. And then that is like their number one signature, right? So now when the Council of the Gods was summoned and all the different gods possessed their different avatars, and then they were there. And then Khonshu was being seen, or he was being portrayed by Haru to the other gods as irrational and erratic. So it was already being made to look like he did not know what he was talking about. And then the person whom is also his avatar, Mark, Steven, and Jake, all in one, has mental issues. So he has the dissociative identity disorder. Okay, yes. So there's all that could make them question him. But then, unless he found a way to hide the tattoo, all he had to do was just in front of the gods ask him to show his wrist to them. And I think the series would have ended, or at least the gods would have been made aware of his plan, unless there was some convenient way for him to hide the tattoo which we were not aware of, because that was for some reason avoided throughout that entire time. I was like, where's the tattoo? Show the tattoo. But the tattoo was never showed, so they were able to skate through all of that. But then now you see that the reason why Khonshu was now imprisoned again was because initially his breaking of rules is something that gets the attention of the gods, and the gods and goddesses, and it puts him in trouble with them, right? But then they wanted to see what the star looked like about 2,000 years ago. I think there are apps for that, so they should have easily just downloaded an app from the app store and just check it out. But then that was a very cool thing, don't get me wrong. When he was doing the whole ant thing and everything was reversing, it looked cool. But then it was just for the sake of the cool, not for the sake of the story itself, in my opinion, because that was a plot hole that was just wide and gaping. And speaking of another one, so here's the thing: you have your character, you have your tables, everything has been set in front of you with all the major players in this particular universe, and then you realize that when it's time for battle, everybody seems to not see what truly does happen. That was a major point for me that I know I mentioned earlier, that I'm just going to say again, because when we see that these two characters have reconciled, that's both Mark and Steven, they reconciled. He went through that whole thing with going to paradise but rejecting paradise and coming back to find him, and then they hugged and their heart was balanced, and now they've come, and then he's come back to life and it's an avatar. All of that happened, right? Cool. And then we see, the fight sequence was really dope. The one where you see the sweet swap between Moon Knight and Mr. Knight, and them doing the thing. So him with the suit and the billy clubs, and then Moon Knight with all the moon signs that he was throwing. And here's the funny thing: he was killing all the other people, like all the other different characters, all the other side characters. But then Haru, the ringleader, the main guy, somehow he chooses to spare his life. I don't know, it just felt weird. I know, and here's the thing, I think this is just general comic book logic for the sake of continuity, and because they have other plans for him, and I think there's going to be a season 2, which I am not a fan of. I think the series are good to introduce characters, like the new Miss Marvel coming out very soon. It's good to introduce characters, but after the characters have been introduced, I think you should just put them in the MCU. Maybe you should have a standalone movie, or you should appear somewhere in an MCU movie, not a series. And why am I saying that? Episode 4 of this series shouldn't have existed, in my opinion. Only maybe 2 scenes from that episode should have just been put in episode 5, for example. And what's in episode 4? Like I said, it's a Moon Knight series, but we did not see enough Moon Knight. Okay, now they do the whole reversal thing, and Khonshu has broken the law. Then the gods imprison him. Then Mark or Steven is without Khonshu, so he's not Moon Knight. That entire episode was not needed. It was just them trying to figure out this or figure out that. I don't know. For me, it just felt like it really wasn't. It wasn't needed in this entire series. I don't know. And that's what feels a bit disappointing about this series, because it started so well. While I understand that it's also treading it has the overarching MCU to deal with, and then we're talking about someone who has dissociative identity disorder, and then we're also talking about a comic book character. It seems the comic book character was a lot more lesson in this entire series than anything else, because there were other things I just felt irrelevant. There were some puzzles I just felt like huge and gaping. Okay, another thing that I said, okay, we now have the Beetle character, and Layla gets the powers, and she's fighting and she's doing all that. I really did enjoy that. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed the action. It was so much fun, and the tag team action between the two of them was just really nice, right? But then you will notice that because it's a series and for the sake of continuity, even the action. I mean, these were two characters that were kicking major ass. But then when it was time to fight Haru was not as agile as they were, but was still able to land shots on them. You understand? It felt like that choreography just sort of slows down for the sake of the story between the two of them. It was I don't know. It felt very disconnected for me. And like I said, this is not a rant. This is a review. This is me trying to just be very objective about it, while at the same time understanding that there is material from which they drew their inspiration from. I mean, I know a lot of these guys. The Marvel poster right here behind me has Moon Knight on it too. So these are people that I know to quite some extent. So I tend to compare sometimes, but also at the same time I try to be also very objective when it comes to the essence of the story itself. Because at the end of the day, if the story isn't a really good one, then you will lose your audience. You will lose everything that you are trying to tell. And for me, I think they did at major points in this series. It got to a point where sometimes I was watching it just to complete it, to see, okay, where are they going to end this story at? And then we get the reveal that then there is a third personality who is Jake Lockley, and then Jake Lockley, I mean, okay, now this is the third character that, okay, yes, you've gone to the psychiatric center to bust Haru out so that you can kill him, right? All well and good. But why did you have to kill the attendant? That's the male nurse at that place. What did that person do wrong? So some of these things were just done for maybe the sake of convenience, because okay, now Mark and Steven think they're on good terms, but they will definitely notice, so whether it's in season 2 or it's in another MCU movie, but they will definitely notice that there's a third person, because there is a space of time that they cannot account for, and that's the space of time that Jake Lockley, who is the third character, the third personality, went to the psychiatric home to kill Haru, which Haru should have been killed all along. And honestly, as much as I liked that ending, when they were being overwhelmed, that's the final fight, when they were being overwhelmed, clearly, okay, so now it's been revealed at the end, for those that did not know, that Jake Lockley is the one that was the most violent of them all, and he killed all these bad guys. Why didn't we see that? I think the MCU owes us that. Like, maybe you release it somewhere later in the future. You have to show those fights, because this is an action series. This is a character that is a superhero. Well, it's sort of like an anti-hero, almost in that Deadpool category. But then you get my gist. I don't know if you guys follow me with all of what I'm saying. It just feels like it was lacking in that area, and it should have been more. I don't hate the series. Am I going to watch it again? Not enthusiastically, not particularly, because there are still many other things I would watch. So it felt flat for me, and it was sort of disappointing for me overall. I mean, the way episode 1 started, I was like, ah! But then up until episode 4, especially, that I absolutely hated, and I think it shouldn't have existed. And then to the finale, I was just like, okay, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't as awesome as what episode 1 promised. And honestly, at the end of the day, I'm glad I binged, because truth be told, if I wasn't reviewing, and maybe it wasn't just the completionist in me that wanted to complete it, if I was watching this thing weekly, after episode 4, I don't think I would have watched the rest, personally. I think I would have just skipped the rest, because a lot of things were just done for the sake of convenience. Okay, another one is this. These are gods that have their avatars here on Earth, right? How were they so easily defeated in that fight? That Layla had to find one of them, and he said, okay, to release Khonshu, you have to just go to the place where all the statues are and break it. I mean, it was even so easy to rescue all the other gods because there were so many other gods with their statues there that are probably done one bad thing or the other. So that means what? It was so easy to just find it and break it because at the end of the day, the major croc lady bad guy goddess that they were trying to also release as Haru and his team, it was just a statue they were looking for so that they can break. So a lot of it just felt so convenient. It felt to me like they had such a dope story, a dope pilot that they started with, and then they were writing, and then they were tired, or maybe they wrote themselves into a corner and they just tried to get out. That was what it felt like for me. So it got to a peak, a plateaued, and then just it felt like the stock market in a way to me. Yes, it should have been more, but it wasn't. Unlike Loki series or WandaVision, these are two series from Disney Plus that I will absolutely always recommend. This one, not particularly. So yeah, Moon Knight as a series overall gets a 6/10 from us here at GVN. It wasn't terrible, but it should have been better. It should have been much better, and I think they dropped the ball. I think Disney dropped the ball on it. But yeah, that's the review. If you like what you've watched, feel free to subscribe, share, like. We really do appreciate all the comments. Thank you guys that have been doing so regularly. We thank you for the recommendations too. The channel is truly growing, and I appreciate that. I appreciate every single one of you that participates, your comments, your likes, your shares, the subscriptions. It's been really good, and I know the channel is growing, so thank you to every single one of you, our day one people. It's been an amazing journey so far, and we are here for you guys all the way. We've also started uploading gameplay videos on the channel. Feel free to check those out. We have a separate playlist for it. It's called GVN Gaming, so you can check that out. We appreciate the support, the comments, the shares, the likes. You guys rock. Truly, GVN Nation, thank you very much. What this or this one next to see some more other reviews on the channel. It's been Tech for GVN. Live long and prosper.